Hot Take Point Made is brought to you by Esports Bet, where if you follow my content, you'll know I indeed do put my money where my mouth is and make some spicy bets. Like, for example, I did have OG beating Heroic in the opener at this last Blast World Finals. Now, if you've never bet with crypto on Esports Bet before, they have a first-time deposit bonus of 50% on up to 200 USDT. Right, this is going to be another episode of Hot Take Point Made, which actually does sound really simple, but that's actually really hard to say. Try it sometime. You'll find out. You'll mess it up. You'll get the name wrong until it becomes like a household name. That's the thing. Eventually it will be, like all my shows. Just saying. So obviously, it is. It's actually harder than you think is the point, so try it sometime. So obviously, this is not a show we do with guests at this point in time. We just have the same panel of people every time, and we run through our new hot takes. Now, I will say, I think for this show, one of the reasons I put together this particular panel, I think we can always actually generate hot takes, and you can always do them. And in fact, the whole premise of why I made the show so that you're sort of a bit cheeky with how hot it is, and then you soothe it with like some of the real analysis, is it just means basically you can just reverse engineer something you want to talk about and just make it funny as the intro spoiler. So for this one though, since it was technically, we obviously just started the new year, the year's ended, we actually haven't had another tournament since the last episode. Yeah, in theory, there might not be as crazy, like super relevant takes as normal, but we'll see on that one. I think we've got some that might surprise you. So who wants to start this off? Maui, do you have one to start? Kassad, do you want to start?
I'll do it.
Go on.
It's
break it up.
You know, it's
oh, and by the way, just as an aside, a bit like Snake and Banter. Like on Snake and Banter, I know all the takes just to check that no one had the same point, basically. But I make sure the guests don't. And for this show, none of us know any of our points, just in case people want to know. Because I just think it's more funny that way. Like that way, actually, it's a legit reaction if you do it. Like for example, like that one that you did the other day, where it was like, what was that one on the last one where it was like something like about who like it was about like how good one of the coaches was or something. No, what was that one?
I think it was the Navi not being about Navi, right?
No, I'm thinking of the coach one. It's because if you ever looked at the coaches, there actually aren't that many good. Or maybe it was Apex and IGL or something. I can't remember. There was one of them, but like actually, if you ever go, it's one of those ones where it sounds mad, but it's actually totally legit when you're looking at it. So go on then. Is this one spicy, Kassad?
Oh no, the last one's gonna be spicy, but the first one, like, it's funny that I was gonna go two different ways, but you know, I'm gonna go with, since you mentioned Apex, you know, and the IGL, so I'm gonna go that way.
Okay.
And the first one, like, obviously we have to take, you know, Vitality not performing up to their standards because of the players they have in the 2022, right? They have Zonic, one of the best coaches to ever do it. ZywOo, 2 times the best player in the world, you know, arguably one of the best right now. Obviously, we have mezii and Dupree, the Astralis duo, and now they have the potential superstar in 2022, at least in the first half, it was Spinks. They managed to win only one tournament, that was Pro League. And I'm thinking, like, now listen to this. Let's, in the Christmas break, what would happen if they got rid of Apex as the IGL,
all right, and
brought in, you know who, mezii from Fnatic.
That's the taken off.
Okay. Yeah, mezii has been, you know, the guy is aggressive by nature. Like, he knows how to play aggressive Counter-Strike. He is 24 years old. He has been playing on the high level for a while now. He has been doing good with Fnatic in the past 6 months, considering they had all these lineup changes and all this like loss of identity when it comes to Fnatic as a Nordic organization and Nordic teams, for example, you know, the Crimson and everybody else. And you know, he has been doing well. Like, he's the best player of that team. I've been saying that for the past 8 months. You know, he's really good. I remember him from the time in Cloud9 and Henry G. That was a really good, like, he was the first one who noticed him, and he proved to be really good. And if you put him in a position where he can grow with, let's say, Zonic as a coach, and ZywOo is one of the best players to ever do it. Spinks is a potential superstar. He is aggressive by nature, similar to Apex. I think he can do it.
Listen, obviously that one is a pure hypothetical, Mauisnake. Like, spoiler, I don't believe there's ever even been one. I don't believe the name mezii has ever even been mentioned by someone from Vitality, except in a VOD review or something, you know, like. Yes. So, because this is a pure hypothetical. So what do you think of this initially? I will say that is a bit like what I was referring to. It starts out really crazy, but it actually gets more reasonable the more you think about it, you know.
Yeah.
It has all of it, yeah.
The knee-jerk is that kassad has hyped up almost everybody from that Cloud9 Colossus team at one point or another on the show.
Did I high five Acetag or Alex or anyone else?
That's well. I guess you just brought up Floppy that one time with complexity. So.
You did say that Alex could join G2 or whatever last year, or whatever that story was. If you remember on Snake and Banter, we did that one where it was like that was like
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's true. Whatever.
Okay. All right. To dive into the point itself, I actually think that the way mezii calls would be more fitting for Magisk and Dupree. I don't know if it would help Spinks out, but I think that one thing that I really liked about Fnatic and their development this year when mezii took over the IGL role is the mid rounding was very slow. It was that proddy style where sometimes, like when you remember classic Astralis at their zenith, when they were playing incredibly well, they would just kind of feel out the map. They would understand what the weak point is for the opponents, and then they would dive into that. I think that actually is what mezii was trying to do for a lot of his time calling so far with Fnatic. He had some plays that would mix up the tempo here and there, but I really like. Even, I think one of the very first times that he was calling, I think at the pro league that he was that he took over the IGL role at, they started out mid rounding some teams that I thought were more experienced than them, and that's something where compared to Apex, I think that there's a chance that mezii is actually going to be better at feeling out and listening to what everybody's feeding him and coming up with a better mid round. But that being said, I think that the pressure, being put into a lineup like that, like this is the perfect situation for mezii in my eyes right now. I don't think he should move because I think that he's right now got the training wheels on. He said publicly that Roy helps him call a lot. Like Roy is doing a lot of the mid rounding too for that team. But I would assume in that similar vein that Magisk and Dupree could help him out too, because they should be feeding him as good, if not better, info than Roy does. But I can't get behind this move right now because I just don't think that mezii has the chops for playing in big moments. I've never seen him deliver in a big moment under any circumstance. Like everything for him is group stage games or online games, and he's doing pretty well there, admittedly. But I think he's got to at least work for another year in this position as a caller before I want to see him make the leap up to a team that has championship aspirations like Vitality.
Right, here's the thing on my take on this one. It's like, I think it's like, look, it's just hypothetical. So in terms of the reality of it, like I would put it so I probably wouldn't do this move for the same reason why Maui said at the end there, which is like, I'd have to actually see this guy be in a bunch of like semi-finals and finals and have like big matches where the game's up in play and you make the calls that win the game. I'd have to see all that. Because at the moment, like the reason I do actually quite rate mezii quite highly actually as an IGL is I do look at that Fnatic lineup and I've watched them play loads of games. They're another team, by the way, I often bet on if they're like an underdog with big odds because they're just way better than they should be. Like, dude, you even watch the game and you're like, what players is he working with? Like, as Kassad said, the joke about that team for real, guys, is the best players are Roy, the old entry player of Mad Lions, and mezii himself. And then, like, maybe Crimston's up every now and then. The Nikados guy isn't even that good, by the way. I still don't even know why. Remember, he was hailed as, like, the best. He's the talent you've got to watch out for Copenhagen Flames. Like, I don't know why. I've not seen any of that. So for the start off, if I upgrade Nikados to ZywOo, like, I'm already cooking with gas, mate. This guy could probably do something. But I'll tell you one reason why I would do the move, though, Maui. This is the reason why. It's because of the latter part you said there, which is the joke is this. Because mezii's just some little kid who used to be in Cloud9 years ago and only became IGL recently, worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, we just go where you are a really good player who plays loads of roles. Welcome to your non-IGL job. Magus, it's your time, bro. So you can also backdoor it that way. That could be like the Zonic chess move. Like, you don't just kick Apex for Magus. That's too much pressure, mate. You kick Apex, you bring mezii and you go, it didn't quite work out with division with mezii, so Magus is going to take over, and then you just hope you win the tournament, right? But I'll give an aside, which is, I actually want to give a take, which is, one of the reasons why I think we're doing this is because, to be fair, I actually think Apex, his stock as an IGL has dropped off a cliff this year. Because what's the main reason he got all that hype last year? Because when he had that land run at the end of last year, his lineup also looked really whack. So everyone was like, wow, how are they doing this? And I'll even say, I think actually stylistically, that was part of how they got it done, because they were so limited with like Kyojin and Masuta. Like, it was a very flawed lineup, if people remember. But the problem I have is this. I actually think, looking back, it was one of those scenarios, and this is a really dangerous area if you're an analyst in esports, which is that when someone has a really limited area, like they can only do certain things or work with certain tools, if they do well, you sometimes make the mistake of thinking, right, if they had all the options, they'd be even better. No, sometimes actually they're just doing exactly what works for them. So what I'll say is this. I think Apex tricked us all, which is, I think what Apex did was he did a super streamlined style of calling on LAN with bad players he knew would die. So what he did was an up-tempo, really fast decision-making style. And spoiler, he's been an entry fragger his whole career. That is how people like that see the game. I actually think I've got a brief aside here, but I thought I'd open up because you might have something on the more abstract side you guys want to jump in, which goes like this. If people don't know, the reason why I never liked the game StarCraft 2, but I used to love StarCraft Brood War, is because in StarCraft 2, to make it a more watered down game for plebs, they did make the game so that like it's only something like, I'm going to say like 10 minutes, 15 minutes before you have like your max supply army. In StarCraft Brood War, by the way, that takes about like half an hour. Same scenario, you get to the max units, you have one big fight in StarCraft 2, and that can decide the whole game. If you win the fight, you start winning the fight, you can turn the whole game, destroy me and win the whole, right? In Brood War, it's more like a traditional war. It's like, right, I have all these bases, like I battled your base here, but you were taking mine over here. Like you got more resources, but I've got a bit, it's more like a long drawn out thing with stages, right? The problem I think that Apex has, now that he has these pieces like Magus, etc., who could do way more than the Kyojins of the world, is he only sees the game as like StarCraft 2. His shit, because he was an entry fragger, is like, right, there's an opening, everyone through the hole now, get in there now, as fast as possible, take the site. Like, that's some like boomer Counter-Strike from like 1.6, mate. In CSGO, that's why the Astralis players were next level. They never had any, that's why there were no tactics from spawn. Like, they might have started with a tactic, but it's more like there was segments to a round in Astralis. Like, you take over this area, and the whole reason, by the way, when you get the opening in Astralis, you don't pile on the site is, why give away the advantage? Why not take the next section in a slow way, where again, if they make a mistake, or they look at the wrong angle, or they rotate at the wrong time, you fucked them up then. Essentially, like, Astralis to me was the ultimate punish style, and I don't think Apex could do anything close to that. I've never seen it. He's had the pieces, I've never seen anything. Like, I even think he just looks mad tapped out. So as a more abstract point, I actually think what we're really doing is everyone's just done a vote of no confidence in Apex. It's not even about the mezii side, is it?
The point is like, go.
Well, I would have a bounce off point to this, that I don't think the biggest problem right now on Vitality is Apex. I think it's dupreeh. I think dupreeh is the one that's underperforming the hardest for them right now. So I think, because he's getting kind of almost not obviously ZywOo gets the star roles, but in terms of like a pack guy that's supposed to be putting numbers out, I find that it's usually dupreeh that seems like he's set up for something, he should be fragging, and then you look at the numbers and it's more like Magisk, and Magisk doesn't actually get all the star spots. Like, he's still playing anchor roles, you know, he's supposed to be doing, so he's not even supposed to necessarily be putting up the numbers that he's doing. Like, Magisk and ZywOo are the guys that are performing above what they should be based off of what they're getting on this team. I think that Apex and lately Spinks are the guys that are underperforming in that spot, but dupreeh too. Dupreeh is like, in terms of like value, if you want to use like value over replacement, I think you put a lot of people into dupreeh spots, and so many people would perform better than him.
I don't know. Yeah, definitely. I mean, dupreeh is going to be the next one to be, you know, upgraded or replaced, whatever you want to call it. But I think I would definitely go with the IGL first. I don't think it's working right there. I think Duncan explained, like, the reason why Astralis was so good is because they had Glaive, you know, for making like the and Magus to make all those mid-round calls and everything. They had Zipnix in his prime. He was on the right spot at the right time every single round. You know, he was able to read everything clutch, everything. That's something that Vitality doesn't have right now. On top of that, the strategical structural system they're running right now, it seems to me that Apex was doing a lot better with Xtaz than Zonic. I don't know where is the difference there, you know, and in styles or you know, approaches to coaching, but definitely there is something different there. If you bring a young IGL, younger, you know, mezii is 24, native English, you know, speaker, obviously because he's British, he knows how to play under, you know, under pressure. He's not gonna fold when the things are gonna be, you know, on the high pressure. So, if I was Vitality, I would go and try to make that change first rather than go with dupreeh. I think dupreeh has another season or two left in him.
Okay, come on then, Maui, hit us with one.
Yeah, mine is that my first hot take for the day is that, gosh, I got to think of which one to choose between these. But okay, I'll do this one first. I think Imperial sticking around for as long as they have is harming the Brazilian scene more than it's helping it. And this is off of the latest news that they are poaching Jota from MIBR. And because I now they've taken Cello, they've taken Jota, and what you can assume from them taking these players, or what you would want to assume, I would say, is that, yeah, they're going to be joining this team of all these veterans that are going to help raise them up, but like FalleN has to be pretty checked out at this point. A lot of these guys got to be pretty checked out at this point. Like, even though he's replacing Fur, I mean, Fur was saying that he didn't even really want to play that RMR qualifier itself, and then they made it to the major. And so you can see that most of these guys on Imperial have one foot out the door at this point. And so what's happening is that Cello and Jota, they're giving them these injections. They're giving them like basically Viagra pills, and then they're saying, "All right, let's go, guys. Like let's get this up, and let's get ourselves to the major." And what they're doing is they're just like cycling through these young talents to just give them a boost in firepower temporarily. But what that's costing is these young players the chance to grow with a real team, one that wants to get better, one that has higher aspirations than just doing some fan service, making some content, qualifying for a major, getting stickers. Like these Imperial teams aren't going to do damage by any metric on the world stage, and so I would have rather seen Cello and Jota and those guys stay on MIBR, a team that was looking rather promising, that were actually winning some BO3s here and there in Europe from time to time, and watch them on their journey. Instead, we're just going to see them, sure, they might get a boost in social media following, but I don't think that they're actually getting better at Counter-Strike in a meaningful manner, whereas if they were on MIBR and they had to be more self-sufficient, this would be better for the Brazilian scene in general.
Yeah, I have to agree on this one. The thing is, like, I don't know what the goal is with Imperial and FalleN and all this, like even bolts and like I don't even know what's happening there. Like, what are they actually doing? You know, what's the plan? But if I was FalleN right now, he's 31 years old. You know, he accomplished pretty much everything that can be done. He won double majors. He won like big events. He was one of the most respected oppers and players and IGLs in the history. Whatever you wanna put the label on it. But the thing is, like, if I was him, I would try to do what Oslo did with the G2, right? He was a player before, right? And he was obviously a good player. Then he turned into like this management side and building the organization. And like, I think FalleN has an army of fans. He can obviously deliver multiple sponsorship deals. He can build something that's non-related to MIBR or Immortals or whatever it is, like it's connected to, or with the ESL Flashpoint. I don't even know who is connected with what there, but he can build something for himself and be the face and be the ambassador at the same time, similar like Carlos did with G2. And that's how you build on your brand, on your legacy, on whatever you want to do. Right now, he's just playing, like you said. He pretty much checked out. I think that it feels like that. I mean, what is he trying to accomplish right now? Definitely, the Brazilian major has passed. We had it.
Yeah.
He did his thing. It's like it's fine. I might just quit here right now and try to do something and stay in the community and try to build something that's massively, that's going to be number one, at least in Brazil, and then in the world, and then in America, whatever, right? And, I would go in that direction. And as far as the young players go, maybe they should probably stick in MIBR or be in that project that FalleN tries to build, and obviously he can fund and finance and whatever, right? So I think that would be for Imperial as an organization. I don't even know who owns them or who is who is behind that organization, but right now I feel like I don't know what's the plan there, right? So it's very, very interesting to see what's gonna happen there. But definitely, if I was FalleN, I would just peace out and just go in a different direction.
I would even literally make it specifically FalleN. I'll upgrade your hot take to an even better one. FalleN is holding back the Brazilian Counter-Strike scene. Specifically FalleN, because think of the rest of the players. Taco actually looks like he has committed to being a real IGL and is trying to do the job properly and set up his young stars. Like, yeah, coldzera is probably tanked as fuck and shouldn't be on that team. Like, by the way, when you watch coldzera play, I hope it actually builds your appreciation for people like what RPK did at the end of their careers. Guys who once upon a time were the absolute pinnacle of Counter-Strike, but years later completely just got rid of their ego and just did a workman-like job to allow other people to succeed. Because when you look at those latter years of RPK, mate, it's only once he left those teams you realise, like, fucking hell, mate, it's so useful to have a veteran who just, like, does their job, basically. coldzera doesn't do that. He still dreams that he's going to be, like, a top 10 player or something. So if you take them out, right, basically, the only one I really put, it's coldzera and FalleN, and coldzera's not really relevant to this discussion. Like, the Fur one is just, as far as I know, he's just a weird guy who doesn't want to be at the top anymore, so he plays with FalleN, right? And FNX, at least now, is just a coach. He's not in the lineup. What I would say is this. The main problem on the side of this team is it's actually the point I made at the very beginning. People get this so wrong, dude. They think because I think a Last Dance project was a waste of money, which it would be, by the way, you would never get a top placing. And if you know how much the salaries that they're on are, it's just paying out your arse, essentially, for like that. The joke there is that's like if I hired like a really old band from the 80s to play my wedding. Like, yeah, I can pay for it, but like, so I'm never going to make money off it. Like, I did it for my own benefit. It's a vanity thing. So the difference is, it still wouldn't be worth money, but at least it would be a good faith project, Maui. At least when we make that lineup with the real original 5 that won the majors, we all go into it knowing, look, aside from Fur, who for some bizarre reason chooses to be here, none of us can win a major. And in fact, the fact that none of us can win a major means it is fine as long as this guy's willing to pay the salaries, that we all play together, because there's a logic to what we're doing. We're recreating a classic lineup because we all want to play together, and then people like FalleN know they're going to retire soon. People like Fur know they're going to retire soon. So what we're basically doing is, it is the last dance, except you're not trying to win. It's just let's have one last cool year where we have this whole project. Instead, what they did is a nightmare middle ground approach, which is what you're describing, which is you take the old players who clearly aren't good enough. Dude, these guys wouldn't even qualify to a major on a normal team. You take them and you just vampirize and cannibalize people like Cello, and you bring these guys to, even Bolts is back in the middle, like, you just bring these guys in and you just waste their talent, propping yourself up for another major you won't make a deep run at. Meanwhile, look, right now they wouldn't make it, but if you could do a draft of Brazilian players, if you could take all of Furia, MIBR, Imperial, Flux, if you took all those players and did like a draft and made like 3 really good lineups, dude, they could win a major. They could have like top 8 teams. Like, it's ridiculous. I will also say, as an aside, Furia definitely holds everything up with those massive contracts. Like, I can tell you already, like a month after that Furia team broke out at ECS, they would already have been in MIBR. They would already have had like Yuri and Kisrato and FalleN and Coles. They'd have already had all those lineups. So that doesn't help. But I do think, yeah, definitely doesn't. And one thing I'll say as well is this, the last point I'll make is this, is I think it is people are so naive. They don't know the difference between being a fan of a person and a fan of like how good someone is in the game. And here's how you know. You know, people think, oh, thank goodness FalleN says one more year. That's terrible news, unless you're just only a fan of FalleN's personality in his bank account. Like, if you're a great player and you're going to do anything in the game, the reason is never like, well, I still kind of want to compete and I don't really want to let it go. No, like the reason always, first reason is like, I really, like, either like I'm dedicated to being the best or I love the game. Those are the two things a player who's active now who will do something will say. Like, the best reason, by the way, the best reason ever is that example that Kobe had the best line ever on this, where he said that like doing all hard work in the gym is like having to eat your vegetables, but I enjoy eating my vegetables. That's the point. That mentality can't be beaten, guys. If you have to force yourself, and by the way, most people won't, then you're just going to lose to that guy. He likes doing that shit. So my problem is, if you just look at the interviews, it's obvious FalleN's not going to do it. And here's why, by the way, this is also different. This is why, inadvertently, you all agree with me, FalleN's mega overrated. Because if he actually was what the fucking banner tells me he is, the greatest IGL ever from this, then he would at least be able to fucking put together teams with these guys and be really good. He's a bang average IGL who, by the way, by his own admission, hasn't had his finger on the reed of Meta Counter-Strike for 4 years. By his own admission, for 4. So that means, guys, let's do a little number game here. He was on top for 4 years now. He hasn't even had a fucking chance at being a good IGL. In fact, where are all you guys putting him in the top IGL lists? You know, when we're doing IGL lists and you get weird names getting there, like Apex last in 2021, you get like a Jim gets in there now, Cadian. Why is FalleN's name never coming out of any of your mouths? Why is he never on there? Because he's not even on anyone's top 10, for fuck's sake. The joke is, I don't even know if he's the best Brazilian IGL at this point in time. Like, the joke is Taco might even be better. Who the fuck knows? I won't say art, because I at least have some fucking dignity and decorum in my life. I haven't gone that far yet, Brazilian. So I'll just say that. I also think the stupid thing is, the only thing you enjoy about FalleN's game is individually you can still bring out the odd flat throwback game that's good, but like as an IGL, he's so washed it's mental. So that's the other thing I have a problem with them is, normally IGL, if you're a truly great IGL, I like your existence. The joke is, if existence came back tomorrow with those Falcon guys, I would watch. He might actually be able to do something. The FalleN IGL thing is just that never made it into 2018, guys. That's dead and gone. That's just gone so far. So I agree with the point generally. I'll segue this. Do anyone have anything they want to follow up with?
No, some of the strats that actually Imperial were using, just to harp on this point about FalleN as a caller, they were just copy pasting from other teams in the top 5, and then they just wouldn't work because they just don't have the players, or they just kind of ran a spawn, like out of spawn call that was almost like a multi-layered strategy, and it just didn't work. Like if you break it down and look at some of the POVs back, or just the demos, it's like, what? How did they expect this kind of round to come together when you're not Na'Vi?
The thing is, like, you have to go back. I do agree with that, like, coming into 2018, FalleN has just, disappeared as an IGL. 2 years before that, he was the best IGL in the world, 100%. The meta they have been,
Oh, in 2016 it was, for sure.
They introduced the meta and shaped the game like no one else. They invented the roles of a closer. Those are lurkers, the Happy, Get Right, all the Hiko, all these players that he was just baiting everyone till the point that somebody was tilted, And the good ones, they got the job done. The bad ones, they didn't, and they didn't do anything. So the thing is, they invented the round of a closer, which was called Zera at the time. The proper entry, which was Taco at the time, and then obviously the combo, the IGL and an Oper at the same time was something very, innovative in a way, right? So you have to give him credit for those 2 years that he was the best one. Absolutely no one was even close. But after that, he wasn't even in the top 5, 10, whatever, because they didn't play anything. Even when he was in Liquid, he was having issues with calling and the meta and everything else that's going on. And they tried playing that nuke with Stewie and then switching up the callers. It was just terrible. And ever since then, ever since 2018, they never recovered. And obviously, I think Furia was one of the reasons why, because they couldn't get the best players at the time, which was Kassad and Yuri. If they managed to steal them away from Furia at the time, maybe, just maybe, they would be able to actually come back and maybe win something more. But, it is what it is. So I don't think he's going to be coming back as any kind of, high-level IGL anymore.
Right, here we go. I'll segue into my hot point, because this one's a fucking banger. And also, it actually fulfills what I call the Mauisnake doctrine, which is it's just self-indulgent for someone on the panel to big them up. So that's a thing now. That's a new theme I'm introducing. So here it is, Maui. It is that Vitality, actually, the whole time of Vitality this last year, 2022, actually suggests we always overrated Zonic as a coach. Ooh! Ooh! You ready? So here we go. Here's why. And now you'll see when the Maui doctrine comes in. Because who are the people I always put as the contenders to Zonic? Now, obviously, now Blade would get in the mix. But actually, for the purposes of this discussion, Blade goes in the Zonic category. So you ready? The two people I always said are the contenders. The main contender is Zeus, because of how many, look at all the different teams he did it in. And the other one is kassad. If you look at the teams kassad had, mate, that's all fucking... The joke is, Chad, you were always right to retire. You were a dog shit IGL. It was really good talking on a mic. Every second you were in the server was death, and I'm glad I made you upset, because it means you're now a brilliant fucking talent that I don't have to watch play shit Counter-Strike and get actually annoyed at how bad your teams are. So he took that guy's team that had no IGL and had the fucking entry player, I'll have a go, and they were almost in the final of majors, homie. That's impossible. So what I'll say is this: the reason why Vitality suggests Zonic is overrated is because Zonic worked with 7 players or something meant like that over 3 years. 7 players over 3 or 4 years, all from one country. The core wasn't even his. It was Carrigan's core from a totally different team that had already had success and been to semis of majors and everything and won massive titles and stuff. He got all that, and then he had the most success ever. Brilliant. By the way, that makes you a Tron contender for best ever. But here's how he was overrated, because people made it sound like he was the perfect coach, he had no flaws, he just understood everything. They did that mistake they always do. I used to have a witty line I used to say back in the day, Maui, that went like this. I used to say, I don't think I know everything about Counter-Strike, because logically people know things I don't, but I think I know the most, in the sense that I know more collectively, even if that doesn't mean, and this is where fan always gets it wrong, doesn't mean I say that I know more than each individual person. Each of them separately could have separate info I don't. I might just have a bigger breadth over here. So along those lines, the reason why I think it shows it's overrated is because when I used to contrast Zeus, dude, people never even put those factors in. They just looked at the titles. And it's you do know he went to a North American team from a Brazilian team and had them contending for majors and stuff, and in every big final, second best team of the year. Then he went and he had he had the other teams he was in, mate, this is ridiculous. And he had obviously the Evil Geniuses lineup, which by the way was fucking dog shit before, dog shit afterwards. Give me a break. And he's doing all that cross-culturally, different sets of players you've never worked with, even broken players, coming in and taking a broken set of players and accomplishing things with. Zonic took the best Danish players, guys, who were I made the joke in the past, but it's real. The jam jar was almost off. And then he was can I just have a go at that? Pop, oh, it was me. I got it off. It's motherfucker, we've been working on that for years. It was right almost there for Carrigan. What are you talking about? He had no coach basically at the time. So there's the take. It's spicy, but basically, I think you have to look at because I'll tie it back into the last point, which is this. The reason I made the high-level example of Zeus, kassad, Blade, Zonic, because obviously Blade and Zonic are working with their home countries, etc. etc., is if you actually look at the coaching game, it's an international job. The majority of coaches aren't from the country that their players are from, because in the modern day, the majority of teams are multinational teams. It's actually very rare that you're going to get that, like, I'm Twister, I'm Finnish, and here's the best Finnish guys, cool. Like, that's actually quite rare now. That's like a one-off thing. So I actually think in the modern day, coaching's going to be like professional sports. It's going to be like, you come in for this job with a totally different set of players, you have to figure out your approach, bit of negotiation, you get going. The way that they did it here was almost like the history of sports. Like, you know, like, this guy was always at the Packers for 40 years in the NFL. Like, that's never going to happen again. So I actually think not only did we maybe overrate Zonic, but I even think that type of coaching is probably some shit for the past. It's probably a relic of the past. I actually think now, by the way, we should almost like put Zonic's like Australia stuff in time capsule. Like, yeah, it was the best. Put it over there. We should just judge what he does now as a totally separate entity. We'd almost stop connecting them. To me, it's a totally different skill set he's working with now.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you take a look at Astralis in the prime years, you can't really argue that the number of titles
it's mental. It's impossible, isn't it? Yeah.
It's just crazy to even, get into that position again. He got an easier circumstances. Let's compare, like you mentioned Zeus, right? And he's not doing it anymore. And let's say Blade. I think he had a tough, much tougher time than anybody else, including me or Zeus or everybody, because I think, yes, the CIS region, they're all speaking the same language, but they are very wild people in culture, right? It's very difficult to deal with those people with the personalities. And obviously we know that Simple is a very, emotional in a way, let's say it like that. That's a mild, saying. And he also managed to find new talents, make the right moves, deal with Simple, doing all these things, find Boomich, getting him into the, all these things, even before Navi, and even when back he was IGL, he did it with Flipside, and managing to qualify for all these majors when everybody was like, yeah, how the hell is he doing this? So I would probably rate him right now a little bit higher, just a little bit, when you compare to Zonic, who is also, like you said, that he's working with like only 6, 7, 8 players, maybe total, all Danish. And also we need to understand that in Denmark is a very developed country, educational wise. Like their schools, from the moment they're kids, they are taught of concept of a coach. They understand that it's just the system they're working in, and it's much easier for, let's say, Zonic to deal with players and in his own country with their own mentality, with their own culture, who are, taught from like young age how to deal with the coach, how to accept coaches and coaching as well. One on the other side, in Serbia, it's wild. In Brazil, we all know it's wild. In CIS region, it's wild too. And, obviously the conflicts right now between the Ukraine and Russia is not really helping. There is tension there. No matter if you are like in the same team, the problems are going to be there above your head. So Blade has a much tougher time. He managed to win the major. He managed to win the Grand Slam, Cologne, all these things, right? So that's very commendable. He's number one right now. And you said it like before, like if you put Zonic in the past, right, that all this time, yes, number one. Right now, you can kind of compare it with Jose Mourinho, right? A little bit. When he came into Chelsea, he won everything. He was the best player. He won Champions League with Porto, and it's like super good. But then he didn't follow up the meta. He got different players, and he kind of fell off. After Manchester United, then he went to different clubs, and then didn't really go. And then he got into Roma right now, and he's doing very well. So maybe Zonic can do the same in the right circumstances. But yeah, your point makes it is spicy. It makes sense. Totally, but there is different angles to look at from.
Do you have a take on this, Maui?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I said on another show pretty recently that either the first or the second episode of this that I would have put Blade above.
That
Zonic
was a take.
Yeah.
Mine was more like essentially my overall take's more of an abstract. I think the way we analyze coaches is flawed if we only look at like essentially if we don't ask how does Zeus coaching Team Liquid. By the way, I even picked that because he was the direct competitor of Zonic. Like, look how much harder that guy's job is than Zonic's, if you know what I mean. That was kind of the abstract I'm making.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so to get back to just Zonic being I mean, is the point exactly that Zonic's the most overrated, or is it overrated, or it's
I wrote the point down as Vitality suggests Zonic was overrated as a coach.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then I would say that is very fair. That's super fair, because I think that also anytime like the stars align and a championship roster comes to be, especially one that's era defining, everybody is going to start saying that every single person in every single role is the best in the world at that, other than like some rare cases where it's obvious that, you know, Simple was better than Device for certain periods, what have you. But that's kind of a similar case to, I'd say, like, what do I want to relate this to? Maybe like Taco, you know, like Taco's kind of a Zipnix type for that SKLG lineup. Everybody's saying like, oh, Taco's like so perfect in his role, but it's like, well, if you had someone that's a little better, they just win in a different way. And I think that's where I would consider Zonic, where it's like they were winning and they were doing it with incredible players. There's no doubt that Zonic was instrumental in putting some of those halves together. But also we've seen now that those pieces work best when they're all together. Like they actually found some harmony in working as a unit that they actually none of them have been able to recapture since then. The only person that actually looked, I'd say, looked the best since that Astralis lineup has kind of been dismantled has been his brief stint with NIP. Device still looked really good to me, and I think he still looked really good in the recent games for Astralis. So I think that he's probably the most self-sufficient of all these players, but everybody else is somebody that worked perfectly in the system that was created at that time. And with Zonic being overrated as a coach, it does need to be stated that adaptability is something that needs to be prized amongst coaches. If you can't move to a new type of team and make it work, then you only have this single faceted approach to seeing the game, and that in turn means that you're probably not going to win with your roster that can't carry out the same exact type of mid-rounding that you were able to do before. And I think that for someone to be labeled to me as a GOAT or someone that's like the best, I think they need to be self-sufficient. They need to prove to me that they can make it work despite or regardless of the adversity that faces them, and regardless of the situation being slightly changed in such a way that makes them a little bit uncomfortable.
Put it this way, Maui, to just tag on what you just said there. It's actually why I came up with this take, because I remember when the Zonic move to his Vitality was first announced, what did everyone say? This is where he will prove he is the GOAT beyond all doubt. But the same people don't then a year later go, okay, then what does that infer since he didn't prove it? They never follow through on the thought. Because if you don't get it, it's like the point I made recently. If you actually say and you believe winning the World Cup cemented Messi as the GOAT, but if Ronaldo had won with Portugal, you wouldn't have said he was the GOAT, then it doesn't cement him as the GOAT, does it? Like, your own argument is fallacious. Like, the point there is, whatever you thought of before, when you set the terms like that, you have to then follow through, win or lose. So, in this scenario, I just think it's like something that should be talked about, since everyone did say that. Everyone was like, if he wins with these guys, like, none of the original players, except obviously like Dupree and Magus, then he's got to be the GOAT. Well, then we have to have the same discussion when he doesn't do it then, and he wins one fucking tournament, like Kassad said at the beginning of the show, with, by the way, again, let's not make out like he's got a shit team now, guys. He's got an actual GOAT contender. Like, but for real, like, one of the best in the world. He hasn't started working with bombs, is he? Like, so, okay, let's move it on. Go on.
The reason why Astralis was so good in those years, because like the meta changed after that. It became more individualistic. You know, it's super individualistic actually right now in the past year and a half. And if you're a coach and you see that's happening and you cannot keep up with your best like strength that you have, which was a team play. When it comes to Astralis, yes, they had decent individuals, but they didn't have like some super crazy superstars like, you know, Nico's Device, Nico's and ZywOo and Simple and everything else, right? You need to make it adapt to it, like get a more, you know, specific player for that. But they made some mistakes, and he still has time to, you know, to get that title of a GOAT.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see what they do in 2023, you know, and maybe if they win something. But anyway, the second hot take. I'm just gonna stick to this like lineups and everything else before I go into my third one, which can be a little bit more, you know, but we'll get there. So if FaZe wants to remain as number one team, right? We all agree they're the number one team of 2022. They won the major, they won everything, right? If they want to remain number one team, they need to remove Rain today. Right now, today, they need to get rid of him.
So you all hated that take when I said it like a year ago. That was my take.
Yes.
Because here's, by the way, as an aside, that was the first tournament they won, for fuck's sake, guys. People make out like I said that after they won the major or something like. No, the thing about that is, obviously, that is the news, right? That they might have to replace Rain temporarily. If you haven't noticed, Kassad, I think most people actually now are quite reasonable about FaZe. They know that Carrigan and Rain can't last forever. They can't just play for like 7 more years. So, like, even though if you have this discussion, Kassad, people are going to think it means you hate Rain or you think he's bad. But, like, the point is, you just have to make, if you want, the key thing you've said there, I'll let you continue, is if you want to remain number one, you didn't just say if they want to be good. If you want to be number one, though, if you want to do the move that ensures you stay at the top, this is the move, right? The gamble.
Yes, exactly. Like, and I'm going to give it like a football example, but people will understand the best because it's a high tier football example right now. But the thing is, like, you need to, if you want to, FaZe is the team, that has players, the core that wants to be the best, that they were the best in the last year. They want to remain there. Rain is a player who delivered many years, great numbers, the MVP of the major finals, and then, like, everything. He won everything. He's a Hall of Famer, I believe, by himself. So right now is the right time to let him go and get yourself Aleksandar or that type of player, right now, today in this break. So the example that I'm giving you right now, people will probably think, yeah, but it's Rain and still not yet time. Look at Real Madrid in the last year as a football club. They won Champions League, they won the La Liga in their own country. They played great football. They eliminated Paris Saint-Germain, they eliminated Manchester City, they beat Liverpool in the final and Chelsea and like all these teams in the playoffs, right? And then what happened? One of their best players, like the central midfielder, defensive one, Casemiro, is 29, 30 years old, right? So what they do, like, they're the best team in the planet at that point. Like, everybody's, yes, Manchester City has the great team, but, the title says, the European title says that Real Madrid won everything. They beat them twice, whatever. And they take Tchouaméni from France, from Lille, I think, or Monaco, sorry, and they buy him on the same position. They sell Casemiro to Manchester United, get like 80 million, 100 million, whatever they get for Manchester United, and they sell him off. Why? Because it was the right time to sell him off. Casemiro is 29, 30. He has a couple of years left. Go to Manchester United, play a role. We're going to get the next best upcoming thing for Tchouaméni from Monaco, like the French player who is like super good on the very same position, who's going to be the future of that team for the next 5, 6, 10 years, whatever. Like Luka Modric was when they got him from Tottenham 10 years ago, right? So the same principle happened with them. The same principle needs to happen with FaZe. Obviously not for 10 years, but maybe for 3 or 4, you get like yourself, like, let's say Aleksandar is the best choice, right? He's 21, 22 years old, aggressive. He can help with the calls if Carrigan needs a secondary voice, like he always talked that Nico did for him, right? So he can have that. He's aggressive, like I said, by nature. He can be that entry role. It will fit perfectly. And if they sell Rain right now for a high amount of money, which is possible to some organizations, let's say, EG, Apex, whatever, right? People that have money to waste. So if they do that, they get enough money to go to Liquid and say, listen, we want to pay this ad, like whatever the deal is. Get Aleksandar back to Europe so he can live in Europe, play with FaZe for the next 3 years, and your lineup is complete. The next step is obviously Carrigan after like 2 seasons, but that's it. It's a perfect time. Right now, in a year from now, if they keep Rain for a year, after this break for 2 more seasons, it's gonna be too late. They're probably gonna give him up for free. They're not gonna get a probable, the best option they can get, and they're not gonna win anything. Probably not gonna win anything in the next year because there is so many good teams, and they're gonna struggle to win. Maybe they win a title too, but they're gonna struggle. So my take is like they need to sell right now and buy something for the future.
Ooh, so when I made that point about Frozen being the guy I would switch with Rain. If that happened today, I mean, I'm taking that all day. I'm taking that one easily. If the point is more with like the emphasis on they won't be the top team of next year, I think FaZe can still be the top team of next year, actually, even with Rain. I think that it's an assurance if they actually get rid of him, if they bring in Aleksandar, if they bring in Frozen, even Config, something like that. If they get any of these kind of players, I think that their dominance is assured. But if they keep them, there is more up in the air. I want it to happen. I want it to happen, so I'm gonna jump on it. I'm gonna jump on that, but I also don't think that they are gonna go like lost. I don't think it's dire straits for FaZe if they don't cut Rain. Like I think he actually has shown that he can ramp up in ways that can be impressive. And also, I'll just say like this just is a testament to the star power and the calling from Kerrigan. Like even if he plays kind of badly, I think that Rops, Twist, and Brokey can carry the fuck out of a lot of games. Like I don't think they always like if they get. That's why it's like if they get one more great player, then they're definitely just gonna win everything again. But if they keep him, like, man, that trio is so good. I actually don't need to do anything immediately. That's why last time on the last show I was okay with them, like when they see that there's a downward trajectory for the team, then I would pull the trigger.
Before you go into it, Duncan, it's like right now I'm not thinking like just 3 months ahead. Like let's say he can play for the 3 to 6 months.
Yes.
I'm thinking of 3 years from now, right? I want to have my team. I don't want to rely on Brokey, Twists, and Robs to deliver every game because 2 of the players can't. I want to think 3 years ahead. Right now, if I have a chance to sell Rain for a decent amount of money, and I have the budget that for 2023, I'm jumping on, like, let's say, like you said, Frozen, Yekin, or Config, anybody aggressive, right? And just doing, and I don't have to think about anything for the next 2.5 to 3 years whatsoever. You don't spend anything, you just play. And then after some time, you obviously change the IGL when the time is actually right. But it's a very tight window right now, and I would just take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this is it's like another discussion that's taking place on a bunch of different levels. So what kassad's talking about basically is he's thinking from like a general manager position. How do you manage your franchise for this year and multiple years? So he's trying to basically kill 2 birds with 1 stone. He's trying to make sure we're better for this year, 2023, but we're also in a better position. Like we're closer to where we need to be the best team in 2024, 2025, and the reason why that's even more important for FaZe is because right now it's Rain, but one day it will be Kerrigan. Like Kerrigan's not going to be 40 years old being the best IGL in the world. I'm sorry, like that's just not the world we live in. He's probably himself got a year or 2 more. No one knows. Part of it in his case probably motivation wise. Like the joke is if you actually win too much, maybe he retires in a year or something, like that's the sort of world we live in. Like everyone envisions, you win the major and you retire after. Like everyone wants to do that big fucking go out on top moment. So I actually think
2 problems.
Yeah, but I actually think on the point you're making, it's a very valid one. Here's the 2 reasons why. One is if you don't do it the way Kassad says, which is you aggressively pursue the idea that as soon as anyone is dropping off enough, not even dropped off, just dropping off enough that like I can still get the sweet spot where they might be like good or pretty good for like a lower team or some team that just wants the name value, but they won't be as good for me. The key thing is if you do it that way, you can actually maintain an elite team. If you do it the way everyone normally does, and FaZe themselves got themselves in this position with Olofmeister, where you let a legendary player play way too many years, what happens is eventually you don't even have the base of the team to make the 1 change anymore. Now you need like 3 changes. They didn't in their case because they over years did get the 3 changes, but spaced out. They got Twists, Kerrigan, and then they got Rops. Spoiler, guys, that means almost the entire FaZe team before Twists wasn't serviceable to be number 1 in the world. But they got lucky that they got these 3 moves almost in exactly the right order and spaced out enough that it could all get the sweet spot. If you don't do that, here's what will happen, I'll predict, right? In 2 years from now, Rain also isn't just going to magically be getting top 10 stats like this many years in his career. Eventually, he's going to be like Olofmeister. He's going to be a washed player who mentally still has some of the nous of the game. Skills aren't that good anymore. And even in interviews, sort of admits, like, I'm not that good anymore. When you have that player, here's what happens. You won't even have Rops anymore. He'll have gone to some other number. He'll be in like Vitality in 2 years with ZywOo winning the major. You won't have Brokey. He'll have gone to some other squad with Nico and a new fucking G2. That's what will happen. So now when you make the move to remove Rain, at the end, you won't have had this amazing look that you had in FaZe now where you already had the twists and the move and then you just need the Kerrigan piece. You'll make your 1 move. You'll get some young star and it might even be a Yekindar too. And it'll be too late. Now you'll be building a project from the beginning again. And then also, here's a key point to make because I think this is a really key one I've always made over my whole analytical career. I have a rule that goes like this. You never break a winning team up until you know it can't win anymore, right? So for me, that means technically I wouldn't make a move now to FaZe because I actually think the Blast 4 finals, which they were like a round from winning, shows they can still win. That's why you guys are saying they could be number 1. But here's why it is worth considering this move if you're FaZe on this year's level alone. And here's why. It's because simultaneously you have a scenario where Even when FaZe was at their best, it was always by that margin. They had to win every game super close. They had to get, like, everyone had to have an awesome performance. Like, the joke is, if you actually go and look at the performances they had with people like Rain at that major, I don't know if anyone will ever get a team performance like that again. That was like some throwback, like, Fnatic shit or Astralis where, like, everyone just balls out the whole major. Like, that doesn't happen in Counter-Strike, guys. Like, there's a reason why in the modern day people try to just get, like, superstars, just load up on these motherfuckers. So, not only is that so unlikely, so as a result, what I'm saying is, if FaZe gets even 5% worse, they might not win any of these matches. They'd just be really close second place. But the more important one is this. In my opinion, if you get to the point where you're like number one, but you're not like a clear-cut number one with everything locked down and no one can come for you, too many people in sports and esports, you know the example I'm going to give, kassad. It's the classic Bill Belichick rule. The reason Bill Belichick is a genius in sports, if people don't know, it's not because he knows like every good player. He's just the best ever at playing poker. He knows like when to hold them and when to fold them. And there are some amazing examples, and probably the best ever is like fucking like Randy Moss, if people don't know. He knows when to get rid of like the like guys who are like fucking simple in the server, but he knows like that's not the move for me anymore. Like I've got to go a different direction. He's unbelievable at that. Like I've never seen a guy ruthlessly cut people, and then even at the time you're like, God, dude, but what he did for your team, he just want. But then 2 years later you're like, he's a fucking genius. How did he know? And the whole reason why is because what he's willing to do that no one else is. This is my final point. Is he's willing to be the bad guy in public. He's willing to have the fans go, "What the fuck are you doing?" By the way, do you think people like Tom Brady were happy when like Randy Moss got caught? I bet he went fucking mental and tore the office or something. But you know, in the long run, when you see a guy like that do the move, that is, I agree with kassad essentially to bring it all the way back. This is how teams should be thinking. We as fans can speculate all day, move tomorrow, that we like this lineup even if it doesn't win. But if you're a team org guy, like a general manager, this is how you think professionally, in my opinion. And no one's been doing this. Everyone's been, because players used to make teams, we've been doing it off like a 3-month span. Like I always used to even say it as a final thing to say very quickly. It's always amazing to me that people just literally, team org owners to this day, wait till they have the worst performance of the year and then go, who can we get? And I just want to go, right, you're fired. What are you talking about? Who can we get? You've been planning. You didn't know when we had those 3 bad tournaments. You weren't going like, who's available? Whose contracts? You don't even know any of that. Like, the joke is you aren't fit for your job. Like, you don't ask the player who he's getting. His job is to play the game. So I agree with the whole premise, yeah.
The thing is, like, it's so ridiculous right now in organizations that these people are getting hired and just like doing all these things. Like, they don't even know what the hell is going on. But we need to have this Jerry Krause, type of people that can make these decisions in advance, right? 2 years from now, 3 years from now, like thinking, okay, Rain, yes, he's one of the best players, best entries, best aggressive players in the past. His time is almost out. I don't want to wait till his time is completely out. I want to have a team that's going to last. And then 2 years from now, when let's say Robs is not really performing and I see he's dropping off, I look for the next superstar that's going to be playing the closer role. The same goes for Vitality and Maui's point on Dupree. It's the same situation right now. Yes, he won everything. That's fine. He's a, respectable career, one of the greatest, right?
Sure.
But it's time to step aside. Let's get a young somebody like the next superstar in that team and perform for the next 3-4 years. That's how you think and that's how you go about it.
Yes. We'll just take a break from those hot takes to inform you of the classic hot offer that they have at eSportsBet, which has got to be, of course, the 100 USDT bet forgiveness, where if it's your first time betting with crypto, you can make your first bet with the stake up to 100 USDT. And if you lose that bet, you message the mod mail on the Discord, discord.gg/eSportsBet. Tell them Last Free Nation or Thorin sent you, and they will credit your account with your original stake up to 100 USDT. So it'll allow you to potentially make a crazy, spicy bet. And if you lose, get the money back anyway, innit? Should we go on then? Should we move on? Go on then, man. What's your hot take? Come on.
I got a fun one. As of January 1st, Electronic's wife posted on Instagram that they are separated now, and I think that Electronic is coming back. I think he's going to be better. Okay. I think the divorce is going to help out Electronic. I think being a single man again is... Yes, as an individual, I think Electronic's going to have a huge bounce back because of this. And this is more of one of those pure speculation kind of ones, but it's just that it's just like the dual life of having to travel on the road, consider your family and everything like that. This is, I mean, most people obviously prefer to have a family. They prefer to have people that they can rely on. But I think that for Electronic and for actually a lot of gamers, it probably is just more helpful to just be single. I think that's usually honestly just going to motivate you more. Like until you're getting to those super dire moments where you're just like, TF to the face win no GF type shit where you're just depressed as hell. Like all of that, like if you're just newly single again, you're just gonna have a nice rebirth. It's like how when most people break up with their ex, they just start getting hot again. They like they'll start going to the gym again, they'll start eating healthy because they want to one up that person. And so what is Electronic gonna focus on? He's not going to the gym. He's just going to be in the server. He's going to play more. He's going to get better at his role. He's going to become a better in-game leader. He's going to find that form again. And I think that the divorce is something that's going to help him, and it's going to help Na'Vi.
You want to take this one, Duncan, and I'm going to take the love. I mean, the love.
Okay. What I'll say is this: like the problem with that is, I get the premise that you're building up there, and look, I don't disagree in the sense that I actually think beyond just the marriage angle, I don't think it's the marriage. To me, it's more that it was causing like this ongoing fucking cloud above you of like, oh my God, does she support the other side? Like the fact that that was even still a thing and people are having to like delete flags off the internet and stuff like that. The fact that these are even stories that people have to think about is a waste of people's energy, a waste of people's time. That will drain you if you're in a team and the team isn't winning. It's coming second, or even worse now. The last few months, it's been like, they don't even get to like the round they're supposed to lose at. They don't like losing the final to the best team. They come like quarterfinals or don't even go further. So yeah, I think in general, like I would say it's more like everything outside the server. So if this in any way helps that, it could make him better, like it could make him individually better. The only thing is, I'll just say the obvious name. Look, if we're bringing up names, we're bringing up names. Device. How'd it go with Device when the old... Because the real question here, Maui, that no one knows is this. No one knows, did he push or was he shoved? That's the problem, right? No one knows who initiated this, really. That's the problem. Because all I'll say is this, let's be real. You can also think of examples where if it wasn't that person's choice, people have just completely internally collapsed and just ruined their whole lives over shit like this. So I will just throw that out there. It's not as simple as leave your wife, become like the major MVP or whatever. Like, you know, like, it's obviously a bit more complicated than that, sure.
Yeah, the thing is, like, listen, we don't know what's happening.
No, of course not. This is a pure hypothetical, of course.
You know, the thing is, like, let's have an example that it goes like the other way, Maui. Like, let's say he was super in love and she decided, like, listen, this is not for me anymore. I want a divorce. I want to separate, whatever. And he's like super in love. Like going back on the server, he's not gonna be on the server. I'll tell you that one. You know, then it's going to go the other way. Then, you know, we don't get to see old Electronic anymore. The other way is obviously if he left her and then it's like, you know, or a mutual separation or anything like that, then maybe he can focus. I like to think about these things when I'm choosing a girlfriend, you know, when I'm choosing, like, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, I want her to be my support system, right? I do the same for her, obviously. But the thing is, like, when we talk about the Counter-Strike and everything, like, players, they have, you know, they have pressures. They, you know, the pressure of performing and everything that's going on. They're all so young and everything. When they're like 20, 22, 23 years old, they have girlfriends. Most of the time, that doesn't go well. When you're a little bit older, you get, like, a wife and you get marriage and everything like that, right? So you want to look at your partner as a support system, not like another problem. When your wife, girlfriend, whatever, becomes another problem that you have like, you know, after you have a tough day at work, after you have a tough day at like, you know, playing the events and you're not performing well and all this shit is happening around you and outside the server, and then you go home, you come back home and there is another problem. There is yapping, you know, there is like problems. There is, you know, Maui, don't look at me like that. But the thing is like, you know what I mean?
Of course.
The thing is like, yeah. And then at that point you decide like, listen, I can't do this anymore, right? And then that's how you maybe come back on the old track. But we don't know obviously what's happening there. But you know, it's
all good.
Let's hope.
Inadvertently, that was actually low key the spiciest hot take, even though we didn't really go into that much because it's too. That was actually that was too spicy to touch. That was radioactive levels, Maui. Like you got to at least be able to handle it, you know. Like so. all right. Okay. I'll segue. I've got a good one for you. because it's another one where I think this one nails the premise of this show. But I'll just hit you with it because it's funny if you just come out with a line. So ZywOo was not a top 5 CSGO player of all time. I like them apples. Because here's the problem. This is why I'm getting really bored, actually, nowadays with sports and esports. Because people start making it so that, like, I have to be, like, a hater of Forrest. Why do I have to hate Forrest, one of the greatest players of all time? I don't, by the way. But if people just endlessly tell me he's better than he was, and I, in response to, like, as the historians say, but he actually wasn't that good, it sounds like I just think the guy's shit. It sounds like all I'm ever doing is telling you what he's not good at. So I've had to do the same thing with ZywOo. I'll give you an example. Right now, everyone in the NBA fucking loves that guy, Luka Doncic, don't they? Here's the problem. You all fucking cocksuckers rammed him down everyone's throat in year 2 of his career, so that now, like ZywOo, when he has got way better, well, how could he get better, you morons? You already said he was, like, goated. You said from year 2 he was, like, the OP, MVP of the league, best player. So how does someone get, like, 1.5 times better like he has? And spoiler, just like ZywOo, Doncic has still far to go, mate. He's still got to fix his fucking defense. He's got a bunch of things to fix. But the point is, yeah, I agree. If we didn't have all the stupid discussion, basically, like with ZywOo, we could just herald this guy as how great he was. Spoiler, I did that with people like Nico, where there wasn't this, like, mad push from the public to make them the best before they were. Because when I say that line, it sounds mad controversial, doesn't it? Like, what the not even top 5 all time. Because from year 1 of ZywOo in 2019, people have not just said he's a contender with Simple for, like, best player of the year. What they did is they saw Simple, super hard carry, was the best player ever. And they were like, well, since ZywOo's his competitor now, it's basically them 2 for the GOAT of all time. Here's where, when I break it down, it actually gets way less sexy, guys. So first and foremost, I'll give you a few details, right? I'll just list off some names for you. So we'll start with Simple. He's clearly better, so he's not top 1 first. Then we'll go, how about Device? I mean, look at the body of work, look at the accomplishments. Let's go Get Right, shall we? If you don't know, those first 2 years were incredible. Insane player. There's 3 names already, guys. I've only got 2 to go. Then should we throw in coldzera? Was only, like, probably the best match player for, like, 2 straight years. I think 2.5 years, but I think he even continued past when that team was good. In 2018, he was still good while they were shit, mate. You can go watch. So there's 2.5 years of being, like, the best, like, actual, like, tournament player. Then shall I throw in fucking Nico? Should we put him in there? What a body of work as a rifler. We're talking half a decade, guys, or more. It's just the best rifler in the game. Yeah, he didn't have the same titles. Spoilers, he was got fuck all of those titles. Don't know why you bring up titles, guys. I'd keep titles the fuck out of conversations if you're a ZywOo fan. You haven't got any, you dumb fuck. It's shit like EPL and Epicenter. Sit the fuck down. Then, by the way, that's just 5 names. If you want to be an actual historian, we can start bringing up Kenny S. If anyone goes Kenny S, that means you didn't watch his career, mate. That means you only saw him in, like, 2018 or something. Like, you go watch Kenny S from the beginning of CSGO till about, like, 2015, 2016. It's an unbelievable body of work. Again, just like a fucking nuts player. We could keep going. Olaf Meister's year or so. That one's a bit more debatable because the body works not there, but he was like the MVP of majors, motherfucker. He was dominating. He was the reason they could play half the maps in the pool. You can even keep going. You could bring a Guardian in. Like, people don't know how great these players. The problem with this is, as you can sort of see by how I'm explaining it, the more you explain it, you realise, oh, wait, that's why. The ZywOo fan's just an 18-year-old French kid who never saw any of these guys play and just really likes this one player. And then I'll throw in the last detail. The thing that unfortunately kills ZywOo is a point I've been making the last 2 years and everyone ignores it. He's had 1.5 years of his career wasted with online play, guys. You know that list I just gave you there? Aside from Simple, and Device didn't even play one of these years, the rest of them weren't affected by the online era. They had all their careers earlier. So here's the detail that kills it completely, Maui. ZywOo has played for 4 years as a pro. He's only had 2.5 years on LAN. The rest was online, and I told everyone that would age so badly. While we were in it, we'd had to all quit esports and we didn't pretend it mattered. But I'll tell you what, the second real lands like PDL Stockholm came back, none of us give a fuck about that online play. Does anyone really still look and go, it just tortures me that Cloud9's not the best? No one gives a shit. Everyone's like, if anything, you look the other way, like, that online era was a bit whack, wasn't it? Like, how were they? Because the joke is, online, they did look like Astralis 2019. They were like unbeatable, what, 2018, you know what I mean? Like, they were like unbeatable. They were none of that on LAN. So all I'll say is, if you look, realistically, he's only had like 2.5 years of LAN play. Unfortunately, his teams have been quite whack at majors as well and the big prestige events. So if you actually look at it, all he has, which isn't nothing, is the body of work. Like, look, those 2.5 years, he's a fucking sick player. I'll give him the eye test is incredible. But essentially what I'm saying is this, you're going to all think I'm disrespecting ZywOo. I think you're disrespecting that fucking crazy list of names I just gave. Simple Device, Get Right, coldzera, Nico, Kenny S. Do you know how good these players were? So my point is, look, I would bet at the end of his career, he would put it this way, he'd probably be top 3. He might even be contended with Simple for the best ever. But right now, I think people still are they're just like taking what's possible and they're making it the reality, in my opinion. Oh, it's a hot take. There we go.
People are just not aware of, like, it's like they forget sometimes of all these players and their accomplishments in the past. You said it, get right, like he was on the top like for multiple years, you know, from the start when the CSGO came out, you know, the first 2 years, even after that. Then he fell off. We have called Zera, obviously, all of Meister, Guardian, Kenny S. All these players have been around CSGO for, let's say, we count the ZywOo as 2.5 years, right? 2.5 years, right? 1.5, we don't really count it as an online in that equation, right? So ZywOo definitely, can he be the top 3 of all time? Yes. Is he now, if you stopped Counter-Strike right now and say, okay, it's done, we have to set up the list of top 10 players right now, ZywOo wouldn't make top 5 simply because he hasn't played enough years to actually be in that kind of equation. Does that change his talent? No. Does that change the potential that he can be the best one to ever touch the game? Absolutely not. But right now, in this discussion of all time, we need to consider all time, not, you know, all 2 years time. You know,
exactly,
we need to consider from you know, 2013 when the game came out, and all these names made this game what it is right now, and you know, paved the way for players like ZywOo and everybody else that came along after. Even Nico, who came in 2015, or you know, at the higher level. So we can't forget all these names. You know, we can't forget Kenny S. or Guardian for that matter, even though they're right now not really on any kind of close level, right? So definitely not in the top 5 if he stopped Counter-Strike right now. Maybe not even in the top 8. But, you know, in 3 years from now, if everything goes as planned, you don't get any kind of interruptions, then things can change.
Longevity is the factor that I think most pleb fans don't reach for when they make these kind of things, like the statements. A lot of what's on the internet.
You know, Maui, I don't know if you've noticed this. I actually get the sense, because you know, one thing I love to do when we have these discussions, I always ask people what's your terminology and like, what's your like model, basically, right? You know, one thing I think genuinely in the modern day is ruining all these convos. I think most people, Maui, when they talk about this, actually just mean like hypothetically if they all like battled in like some alternate time zone, or they mean like peak level, if you know what I mean. Because if you notice that in the discussions in like the NBA, like realistically, if you were said to some fan of like Michael Jordan, like, what can LeBron ever do to be the best, they would just say nothing. Because what they actually mean is their vision of peak Michael Jordan. You could play 40 years and they won't let you be better than him. You know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly. And that's, I mean, I was thinking of bringing up the LeBron versus Michael debate in this, actually, because it's completely relevant that, you know, Michael had such an incredible peak, you know, 6 championships, but what LeBron's doing like 20 years into his career is just unbelievable. Like, like I was 10 years old when LeBron was first in the league and he was still dropping 40 points on people. And so to go back to like this, like anyone that's basically in the top 5 versus ZywOo, though, it's kind of like, yes, I think your analogy with Luka is incredibly accurate, because people actually rightfully hyped him in the beginning, but it got to a point where it was such fanaticism that we had everybody's like reeling, like, come on, just let him play, you know, like, we don't need you to tell us more than what's happening, because we see what's happening. So you can't even live up to the words that some of these people are putting out there, some of these fans. So that's where it's just super frustrating, because until ZywOo even gets the scrolling achievement bar on HLTV, I can't really put him in my top 5, top 7 even, because there's so many players like the guys we mentioned, like Olaf, even ones that you consider fringe guys. I think there's even probably more. I think Electronic is a guy that actually could have a case to be higher than ZywOo, even though he never hit the same peaks. He has so many more in terms of achievements and being the right-hand man on a team that really only had 2 players for a lot of its history on Navi. I give Electronic the nod, actually, in terms of all-time greatness, especially with what he did in getting Flipside some of the wins that he was like willing them into when that team was on the downturn. So Yeah, I think ZywOo is not a top 5 player all time. I would probably put him right now, if I have to make the mental list, like 9th. I think he's probably 9th on my list just because of how high his peaks have been. But I would still put people like Get Right, coldzera, Olaf, Simple, Electronic, Nico. All of these guys clear him for me.
Like you said, by the way, there's probably even names I didn't mention. Like I'm sure some old school fans want like
Elige is there, right?
Snacks, Elige. Yeah, these players have all have longevity too. Yeah.
The thing is, like, it's like I said, let's take coldzera, for example, right? He was 2 times the best player, though. He won 2 majors and bunch of titles. You stop Counter-Strike, you compare those two, who's going to be the higher ranked? coldzera, obviously, right? Yes. And there's multiple players like that. It needs at least 5 more years.
Yes.
5 more years.
Plus, this is why, in my opinion, it's really difficult to actually do top X lists. Because, again, another thing they don't do, Maui, when they don't give you the criteria is most people mean stuff like career resume, or when they say great, they mean like accomplishments as a team. They don't mean like individual play. Because I'll give you an example. Like, if we're only going off eye test, then maybe Kogu was like the 1.6 best player ever. He was an unbelievable player for many years. But I'll tell you what, he has fuck all majors compared to all the other guys. He has 1 ever. It wasn't even, I think he maybe even had a chance to win 2 ever. Like, yeah, you could say, well, teammates, but that's the point. I think most people, when they say greatest ever, include accomplishments and these elements. So if we're going to be fair and we're going to do that, it has to punish ZywOo, unfortunately, even though, like, listen, I'll even give him credit. At this point in his career, he is more akin to the first few years of Simple, where he never quite had quite a good enough team, and there was always some element holding them back no matter how well they play. There is some of that. Right, go on then. I think is it kassad now? Go on.
Yeah, well, one last real quick point about it is that like you have to include longevity. Like if the word is GOAT, there's no way to decouple that from longevity. Like that's just like the key point here, where people can't when that term is just thrown around so frequently nowadays that it's lost a lot of meaning, and it's kind of a meme now. People are like, bro, you're goated. Like, why has it become a verb? Why has goated become a verb now that the kids just say to each other, bro, your haircut is bussin', you're goated, bro? It's like, what the fuck did you just say? Like, you like, there's just no nuance.
It came from America, man.
Yeah, I just can't anymore with the phrasing. Like, just level up in terms of your vocabulary, your diction.
Plus, technically, if any haircut is goated, it's kassad's. He actually does have like the little, the goat has the little beard. Yeah, there you go. There you go. He's got it.
Signature mark.
There you go. Come on.
The thing is, like, the last one, I don't know if it goes into a hot take or anything, but it's been pissing me off for a while now.
That's already a great self going in.
It's like, and I was a part of it, and you are also included in all of that. It's the talent, it's players, it's coaches, everything. I think right now that we live in the era where we are too spoiled, to think that we are too entitled to shit.
Okay,
and I don't think that in sense that, like, let's say, so many times I hear like players complain like, oh, this shuttle ride is too long, the venue is too far from the it's like, this food, like, what are they giving us? It's like, it's normal food, and people are complaining, is there only Snickers bar in this freaking fucking refrigerator or something like that? And like the hotels are not good, the rooms are not good, this and that. It's like we are entertainers, right? We entertain people.
Yes.
We are not doing anything important, for fuck's sake. The important jobs are firemen, policemen,
sure.
Doctor, teacher. Those are the important jobs. We are just entertainers, and we think that we are entitled to a bunch of shit when we are absolutely fucking not. And I was a part of that. I was like showing up to work. It's like, oh, fuck this ride. Like, what's this shuttle is too small. It's like, what the fuck am I talking? That's one of my New Year's resolutions. It's like, I'm not gonna fucking complain anymore about anything. I was thinking like the last few days, the life that I'm having right now. I have a fucking river view. I can buy anything that I desire. I don't have to look at the price tags, and it's all because of Counter-Strike and all these things that happen with it. And I'm not grateful enough, and I'm complaining about the food in the venue, or the distance between the venue and the hotel, or if the hotel room has a fucking iron board or not, and I'm complaining to my talent or my team manager about it. And the players are the same, the talent, the coaches, and everybody is the same. And I think we need to step out of it a little bit and show some gratitude. attitude coming out of January 2023, especially because of the crisis that we had with COVID and all this shit that we suffered, and esports survived, and Counter-Strike is still there, and instead of being a little bit more grateful that we need to do, we just keep complaining about the other shit. I'm reading on Twitter all this garbage, and I hear all this bullshit all the time, and, we just need to tone it down a little bit and be more grateful coming into 2023. I guess that we can call it like a New Year's hot take. I don't know what you think about it.
Okay.
Yeah, you're really getting into the holiday spirit, Kassad. That's I think that just being grateful is probably something that's like during an inflationary period, something that you have to do. I guess like that's also probably, if you want to kind of zoom out on the meta picture of this, like where some of the sponsorships are coming from that are finding their way into esports, it's because there's that sort of pressure in terms of optics from TOs, from orgs, whatever, anybody that's putting an event together or running anything, where they think that they need to uphold to this standard that is set by talent, by the players. But in actuality, it's making us, and esports for that matter, move into some industries in terms of taking sponsorship deals that I don't think everybody is too excited about. And so if we were all a little bit more humble with what we accepted and were willing to take less in some regards, then maybe we wouldn't have to see those kinds of sketchy sponsorships. But as we have them, I'm gonna ask for my damn Snickers bar.
Okay. I will say, by the way, you also were fair, Kassad. Like, we all do it, by the way. That's why, as you say, it almost has to be like a resolution. Because it's like what Maui said. It's because when you're just in the day-to-day and it's just this moment, and you want a specific drink. Like the joke is, back in the day at E-League, there was a certain drink, and if they had like... I was even mad. I used to do that thing where it's like, some days I did want the sugar-free one, but other days I wanted the full sugar one. And if you couldn't guess or prepare with both, then I was going to complain whichever one you didn't have, because I wanted that one that day. That's just the way it was. But although I will say, as an aside, I did also. The joke is, I had to absolutely crawl so you motherfuckers could walk. Because you should see how bad catering used to be at events back in the day, mate. Like, back in the day, you got the same food, like school cafeteria style, that the guy who just like turns the light on got. You didn't get like a special order or so. Oh, what do you want? And is it warm? For Maui, like, no, it's just like it's there at 6, and if you're doing the game at 5:55 and you end at 6:30, you spawn your food's cold. Like, that's just the world we live in. So I did push it forwards, but I will say, when I was going the last few years, I did think a similar thing, Kassad. I thought, like, people are complaining harder now than when it was really whack. Like, I'll give you a very brief example, because this is another area that we all complain, but we never looked into it. And I actually think that's the problem with a lot of pros and talent. They just assume it's easy to give them exactly what they want, and that if they don't, the person's incompetent. So I'll give you a very weird thing I only found out myself, literally like a few months ago. Maybe you know it, maybe you knew it, I didn't. You know, everyone for all of history complains about airline food, and they go, it's all crap, it tastes like bloody fake food, like prop food. I looked into this. You know, apparently it's essentially impossible for it to taste good. It turns out, I thought it was all those things that you'd speculate, like, I guess the kitchen's small and, you know, it's pre-prepared and they microwave. No, apparently for real, part of it is, and this is really weird, I didn't know this myself, guys. Apparently what happens is when you eat, part of what creates the sensation of taste isn't just like your tongue and the pores and that, it's things like smell. And apparently when you're on a plane and you're that high up in a different like atmosphere area, basically the smell component gets removed from the equation. And literally, that's why, you know, on certain planes, they'll even be like, this meal, like in business class, was prepared like, you know, it's like world famous chef. It can never actually be that great. You guys have been in business by now. It's just like, look, it's way better than economy, but it's actually still not that good. You're like, what the hell? You're like, it looks fire. That looks like it should be insane. Like, that's why the Instapit loads. Here's the thing. The only thing business is good for, aside from the bed, is the fucking picture on Instagram. Like, the actual food's just all right. But what you need to do is what we're all doing now, is you need to zoom out and go, I am literally just getting to go to a part of the world in like 4 hours instead of get on a ship for 3 weeks and 2 of us die. You know what I mean? Like actually, there's a lot of gratitude you can have about even shit airline food. So that was the analogy I was going to give. Like, I agree. I think in general there's so many things we should be grateful for. There's small things we should complain about, but we all complain about the wrong things half the time.
It's crazy, right? We don't have to get up at 6 o'clock. We don't need 8 years of school.
Exactly.
You know, we don't have any student loans or anything like that's happening in America. It's like so much easier for everybody. Like, we are living the dream. I don't think we are aware of it. That's the whole point right
yes.
now. I don't think we are aware of it enough. We are complaining on the stuff that we should not be complaining right now. And also, it's not the talent. Like I'm right now on the side of the talent, but I was on the competitive side as well, and I was a part of that problem too. It's like, and I myself did it, and the players did. You know, when you have to get up at 9. And it's like, yo, the media is at 9 o'clock. Oh, why the fuck is the media at 9 o'clock? I have to get up at 8:30. And, you know, and the shuttle, and like, can we draw straws? Who needs to do the fucking interview at 9:30? Let's just get the fuck up and do the fucking interview. Like, you're getting paid $15,000, $20,000, and you're complaining to me about a fucking interview for a sponsor that's actually paying your fucking salary? Get the fuck up and go. That's it. But, you know, it's just too spoiled at the moment right now. And just my New Year resolution is, and I'm hoping that people will follow, at least listen, is like less complaining, more gratitude. That's it for the things that we have in esports, because it's absolutely fucking amazing. Like, the shit that we do is just mind-blowing. We're just traveling around the world, watching games, doing all the shit that we're doing. Yes, there is stressful days. Yes, there is, you know, problems, but it can be so much worse, and it is so much worse for many, many people.
Yes.
And we have it easy, and we are not grateful enough. That's my point.
There you go. You got a free insight into what kassad's coaching style is like there. Because here's the difference. Daps or whatever will be like, guys, I'm going to need you to get up at 9 in the morning and go to the meeting. Like,
but I can't.
I know. Yeah, and they'd be like, nah, like, you know, send fucking like nitro. You know, it was like, they'd be doing that shit exactly. Yeah, the diva shit. By the way, I've got one more that we could throw in here, because I know we've done the basic ones. But I think we actually addressed most of this on a past one, but I don't think we concretized it. Like, I've made it spicier. I've upgraded the Schofield level of the take here, Maui. Here, because again, the main thing I'm enjoying about this show is, look, I enjoy all the talking about the game, and it gives you a chance to do all your theories and stuff, but it's mainly about, I think the actual game is to try and make the take sound as mental as possible. So you think there's no way, but then once you do get into it, you're like, that is right though, isn't it? That's the sensation you want. So you ready? I'll just say the line. I've scripted it very carefully. In 2022, Glaive was the 4th best Danish in-game leader. Woo! That's insane! But think about it.
You're being generous there.
But think about it.
Yeah.
No, but you see what I mean? Because listen, you guys know this. That one you can actually very easily explain. I'll just say 3 names, like Carrigan, Cady, and Snappy. Like, do we need to continue? Is there even a discussion more? Like, you know, but I will say that's a fire fucking hot take, though, isn't it? Like, that is because it just sounds so wrong, doesn't it? It does. Because I didn't even say, dude, if you even said after the Astralis period he was the 4th best in the world, people would have lost their shit. I'm saying in Denmark.
Crazy. When you think about it, it's crazy, but it's three.
Yeah.
Go.
I mean, the thing is also, you could say 5th with achievements. I mean, you could put Hooksy above him.
Oh my god, I didn't listen. I hadn't gone that far. I wasn't putting fight.
Hey, I mean, with what Hooksy did with Copenhagen Flames earlier on, I think it's worth a shout. Like, you can't.
Yeah, really performed at the majors.
He came top 8. He came top 8 at Antwerp with a roster that now we know has a fraudulent opper in Nikotas. Like, so and
he won a LAN. He also won this LAN.
He won a banana cup just like a month ago. Yeah, nice.
World final. I don't.
To be fair though, Kassad, fucking Glaive couldn't even win banana cups. He was losing that pinnacle shit to fucking Cady.
I was gonna add to that. I'm just waiting my turn.
All right, go on.
I'm just waiting my turn.
Okay.
Yeah, I think didn't even. Oh no, yeah, okay, yeah, go, Kassad, take it.
The thing is, like, you were absolutely right. Actually, he's not even top 4. He's, you know, Hooksy's above him, achievements wise, right? He did get the top 8. He did win a LAN that's, you know, considered to be a big event. Astralis, if they didn't have a spot on the Blast and EPL.
I like the way Kassad, like, now uses, like, fucked up modern terminology. Like, Blast World Finals Maui identifies as a tier 1 LAN. Like, you know,
yeah. Very respectful.
Anyway,
go on, fair enough. Okay.
The thing is, like, let's go on your side. They won a banana cup, Astralis didn't, right?
True.
I mean, that's fair.
That's true.
And they played top 8 of the major with the flawed lineup, the unusual lineup, whatever you want to call it. And Astralis did absolutely nothing. They struggled with their lineups. They didn't have the Blast or the EPL slots. They probably wouldn't qualify for that either. It would be a disaster here. I mean, he would be top 5. You know, that would be a very generous, assumption for him for the day. It's quite, sad to see it happen on this year, but it is what it is. It's fair assessment.
Yes.
Cadian was better, Carrigan was better, Snappy was definitely better, and then we have Hooksy, who is debatable, but still achievements-wise, he did more, concluding the year with the title, and then obviously the start of the year with accomplishments. So, not even top 4; it's actually top 5. This was a fire, like a banger one, definitely.
Yeah, there you go. All you need is if at the end you have kassad say the line, which you can just take out of context, like Oaksy is better than Glaive if you look at accomplishments. Just take that quote, chop it, chop, just move it on.
Already see it.
There you go. There's the line.
I mean, you look at Astralis' results, and the best thing that they were able to accomplish in 2022 was top 4 at Cologne.
Yes.
And that run itself felt like you're playing 2 teams that are incredibly high variance to get there, or in fact, kind of 3, because they were in the group stage there. They beat Furia, which is, everybody knows, like, everybody can lose to Furia, everybody can beat Furia. That's just kind of the name of the game with them. They beat a Cloud9 team that kind of just capitulated in a manner that why I call Nafoni such, because he just can fall apart against anybody. And then on stage, they beat Maus. And I think the Maus win, in terms of like just isolating those 2 teams at the time and what we know about Maus today, that's actually kind of impressive, because Maus have been on the come up since then. But that was Maus's first time they were sticking their foot in the pool.
Sure,
like
yeah.
they were just getting their feet wet a little bit. They were feeling out like, oh, hey, we're a good team now, but they haven't conquered the mental battle yet. And that's where Astralis won that game. And so, but then everything else this year was so disappointing. Like, the only thing I remember that was really spirited about the way that Astralis played was when they had config, when they played Ancient. Like, it was one of the first teams that looked kind of good on it, and you wouldn't even have said that was necessarily down to Glaive's calling. It was just config would run out mid like every single round within the first minute, and he would just take somebody's head off, which is why we've been praising config more for the last 3 months of this year than we have been praising Glaive.